Hello and welcome to this round 7 here at GP Prague. I'm Tim Willoughby, joined by Matej, Big Z Zalkai, and we are starting on our first feature match in the feature match area. Tholance and Nevelson is playing the deck that he loves to play in Legacy more than any other, the one he's won a GP with already, that being Death and Taxes, the white control deck with various creatures and so on. Sveinung, Bjornerud, he is playing a shardless Sultai list. We see there already a suspended Ancestral Vision. That Wasteland, though, not quite as effective in this matchup as it may have been in some of the other matchups he's played thus far. Plenty of basics for Tholance and Enevoldsen. You see a Rishdan port there, but tell you what, Stoneforge Mystic, it's a real card in Legacy. It's some very, very powerful equipment to fetch. He's got the likes of Bat-Skull, he's got Umezawa's Jite, he's got Sword of Fire and Ice. Starts off with the Bat-Skull, though, that effectively getting him a second creature as and when he chooses to use Stoneforge Mystic's other ability. Pay 1 white and a colorless and tap it, you get to put an equipment from your hand right into play.
Yes, Sveinung was a little light on land, but did draw to manage the basic forest here, so will be able to play the Abrupt Decay. And he can also wasteland the Richard import from Thomas Enevoldsen, because he has another wasteland in his hand too. And in this way, he can just get some more time until his Ancestral Visions resolves and gets him some new card. It was funny reading his tweet today. It was like, I'm winning with my trusted Ancestral Visions. He was really looking forward to playing with them and doing well, 6-0.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of one of the stories to me of Legacy, is people playing the decks that they really love to play. I mean, both of these players have their own sort of strong preferences within Legacy and able to advance to 6-0 in doing exactly that. A second Stoneforge Mystic here fetching Umezawa's Jite. We can see that there's another Wasteland in hand for Sveinung, but ultimately no non-basics to target just yet for him.
Yeah, he's going to go with the Shardless Agent here instead of leaving up mana for an Abrupt Decay. Maybe hoping to hit another one. Even if it's Deathrite Charm and Tarmogoyf, he's going to be in decent shape. Brainstorm is probably the best end result for Thomas Enevoldsen. Because Sveinung will not be able to get that much of an advantage here, especially if he knows that Sveinung is going to resolve Ancestral Visions and see most of the cards that he puts back.
Yeah, I mean, you never want your opponent to get a free Brainstorm, but if the alternative is them getting something even better, then you'll take it.
Exactly. And this also leaves Thomas with the possibility of actually landing the Bat-Skull by using the Stoneforge, and Thomas can also wasteland the Underground Sea on the Sveinung's side, slowing him down even further. Just past the turn here. Interesting.
Well, there's that Ancestral Vision netting 3 cards to Sveinung. Now he gets to draw for his turn. Suddenly with a gigantic grip of cards.
Thomas is patient, I like it. I mean, he does have Swords to Plowshares, so it makes sense for him to leave up a white and a wasteland, just so that he'll not only be able to put in a Bat-Skull with a Stoneforge Mystic, but also kill any potential Tarmogoyfs or maybe like a Deathrite Shaman.
Yeah, Bjornerud suddenly having to assess quite a lot more options. That's what happens when you draw 4 cards at the start of your turn rather than the regular one. Could potentially be suspending another copy of Ancestral Vision here. As fun as it is to cascade into it, sometimes it's worth the wait.
A lot of options for Sveinung. He has just so many cards.
Tarmogoyf a pretty reasonable one here. There's already land, creature, and instant and sorcery, I believe, in the graveyard. So coming in as a 4/5, I think. I'll get a quick count on that for you in a moment.
Yeah, I think it's a 4/5. And still has another Ancestral Visions, the Abrupt Decay. So just not hesitating. Starts to Plowshares that.
Yeah, straight into exile. Yes, there'll be a little bit of life gain here for Sveinung, but in the long run, I think he'd much rather have had the creature. Meanwhile, along comes a Bat-Skull.
And Thomas is a little unlucky there. He already has all the equipment in his hand. He has Bat-Skull, Umezawa, and Sword of Fire and Ice in his hand, so he'll not be able to get some more value off of like Flicker Wisping, his own Stoneforge Mystic or anything like it.
equally, the Sword of Fire and Ice especially will prove quite the surprise of Sveinung when it gets put into play. He already knows about the GT, he already knew about that Bat Skull, but the extra bit of equipment coming along, I mean, he may well suspect it's in the deck somewhere, but the fact that it's actually in Enevoldsen's hand at the present moment, a little bit of a surprise.
Yeah, I'm going to take a quick look at the deck list of Sveinung and Thomas. I want to see how many Mirren Crusaders he's running. Thomas is running 2, which are actually positioned super well currently in the metagame, just because there's not really that many easy ways for Sveinung to get rid of it. There's Liliana, of course, and there's Toxic Deluge, but other than that, protection from black and green is really good against the Shardless Sultai deck.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting one. As things stand, just the Battle Skull on its own proving a little bit of a problem for Bjornerud here.
See, again, Sveinung with a full grip. So many choices. And he might go for Jace here, which is could be pretty decent play, but on the other side, if Thomas then puts... if Sveinung goes for bouncing the Germ token, then Thomas will be pretty well positioned to put in the Sword of Fire and Ice, equip the Stoneforge Mystic and attack Jace, or even attack face and then kill the Jace. But Sveinung is going for it. He might. No, he's going to bounce a token. So
it's interesting because the early stage of the game for Death and Taxes often revolve around trying to make sure that your opponent doesn't have adequate access to mana. Sveinung's been able to navigate his way past that point. He's drawn plenty of lands here. The next stage is around disruptive creatures in play that just sort of mean that the rest of the board is a bit more of a concern. And so this is kind of where we're at now. Getting multiple powerful equipment in play means that he is going to potentially be able to make life really tricky for his opponent there.
Yeah, this is actually a really tough spot for both players, actually. Thomas has, I think, a Phyrexian Revoker, Caracas, so he can play some guys. So he has to decide if he is going to equip this Stoneforge Mystic here and attack. What is he going to kill? No, there's a Shaman from the Deathrite Shaman. And now, with that being done, Thomas is going to play Phyrexian Revoker, as he does, and he's going to name Jace here. So which will force Sveinung to actually try to kill the Revoker first before killing the sword with something like an Abrupt Decay. Yeah, he has the Abrupt Decay in his hand. So he might be forced to Abrupt Decay the Revoker, then he can activate Jace and so on, but he can still only just draw some additional cards, the Stoneforge Mystic. Having protection for blue is definitely in good shape here. And not even a Baleful Strix can block something with a Sword of Fire and Ice on it.
Yeah, Baleful Strix normally your go-to creature when it comes to blocking. It's got Death Touch, it's got Flying, nothing gets past it. Well, as it turns out, protection from blue means that quite a few things can get past it. Multiple Wastelands taking down both the Wasteland and the Caracas of Thomas and Nevelson, making the most of the fact that that Wasteland was tapped to be able to get rid of it before it could do any work on Bjornerud's mana base. A little attack there from the Shardless Agent. There was no way on earth that we were going to see a block there from Nevelson. That Phyrexian Revoker, far more important to keep around as a way of stopping Jace from doing too much.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what Sveinung goes for here, but doing in common means he's going to go for the Sword of Fire and Ice. Maybe he can... he might want to trade with the Stoneforge. Probably not, but... Oh, or does he? Alright, so goes for a trade here. But we know there's some extra stuff going on. So that's going to blink the Battle Skull. So Flicker Wisp being put to really good use.
The number of different tricks with Flicker Wisp in this deck is almost higher than the number of cards in this deck. It seems like almost everything that can be flickered for good value in this deck. And this is an area where Thomas and Nevelson's experience with Death and Taxes really pays off. He knows when to deploy a Flicker Wisp to maximum effect, and getting that Battle Skull recharged with a Germ token, very important.
I just love Flicker Wisp in this deck. It's just so much, especially if you have Ether Vial. You can do so many good things. And I think the interesting dynamic in this match was also Sveinung drew another Ancestral Visions off of the first one, But it's 3 turns later, and he still didn't have time to suspend because he had to be dealing with the board, not to fall too far behind.
So here comes Liliana of the Veil. Reasonable options both for ticking up and down here. Not too many cards in Enevoldsen's hand. Looks like he's forcing a sacrifice of a creature though, and all of these creatures pretty good. Enevoldsen being put to a choice here.
Yeah, it's definitely tough because Thomas has a Umezawa's Jite in his hand, so he would like to keep the flyer, but on the hand it's not that great against the Baleful Strix. And sacrificing the germ means he loses a lot of the board presence.
Yeah, I mean, the Wastelands that came earlier on, a little bit of a pain for Nevelson. He definitely has ways of using his mana, gets the 4th land there such that he can cast and equip his Flicker Wisp with Umezawa's Jite. Gets a couple of counters on that Jite thanks to a trade there between the Flicker Wisp and the Baleful Strix. From here on out, he has a small amount of creature control just naturally in those 2 charge counters on the Jite.
But there's a Shardless Agent. That was a good draw. Again, just a Brainstorm, but still, it's a Brainstorm.
Just one of the best cards in the entirety of Legacy.
Yeah. He does draw another Wasteland and another Brainstorm too. He might want to shuffle all those away.
Brainstorm, of course, a great card for setting up Shardless Agent so it cascades into the spell that you want it to. In this instance, the 2 haven't quite secreted themselves in the right order.
Yeah, the thing is, Thomas in great shape regardless. I mean, he can always put the Umezawa's Jite on the Revoker, attack, and give the creature +2/+2 if it's blocked. And if it doesn't, he'll just get to kill both the Shardless Agents if he wants to. It's super versatile. Like, I remember a tweet saying, like, if you thought Pack Rat in Limited was unbeatable, have you ever played against Umezawa's Jite?
Yeah, I think that was Sam Stoddard over in R&D. The guys in R&D have pretty long memories for the cards that they need to bear in mind as lessons for the future.
Yeah, exactly.
So Liliana led to empty-handed magic for Thomas and Nevelson all too briefly. He's drawn his card for his turn, now trying to figure out what the best use for all of that mana is.
Yeah, look at even Sveinung discarded Ancestral Visions to the Liliana.
Assuming that he did not have time to suspend it, or indeed the Brainstorms to put it on top to cascade into now that 2 Shardless Agents drawn.
That's, again, another one of those interactions which I really like. Brima's King of Oresco is a one-off in Thomas's deck, and I've seen it put to very good use last round against Miracles. He was doing Ether Vial Caracas with Brimas, so his opponent could never kill it, and he was just putting Sword of Fire and Ice on it. And
I mean, yeah, if Brimaz hangs around and gets to do some attacking and blocking, you end up with a lot of Cat Soldier tokens.
Yeah, exactly. It was just super annoying. Looks like there's Ancestral Visions again from Sveinung. For those of you who don't know Sveinung Bjornerud, he's from Norway, a fairly known player from there. He used to play some Pro Tours in his time, as he minuses Liliana to get rid of the Brimas there. And he also suspends the Ancestral Visions. Sveinung has a top 8 from a GP in Lisbon 2012. Did not manage to win that one because it was Ivan Floch actually winning that tournament.
That man's got a few wins under his belt.
That was actually the first breakout result from him, like really, really good result. There's a attack with the Revoker and with the Jite, and you see Sveinung already blocking with 1 because he knows he's going to lose both instantly otherwise. And the MVP of this game, Phyrexian Revoker, stopping Jace.
Yeah, Jace,
dead in his tracks.
Jace just standing around. He's got no abilities that he can use. All he can do is stand there and look pretty.
Yeah. Looking at that lowly little 2-1. Like, yeah.
Suspending a die magically between his hands.
Yeah.
I've got 2 loyalty, but nothing to do with it, Mum. And Aether Vial in play now. Even though he has lots of lands in play, Aether Vial, the fact that it means that Thomas and Nevelson can put in creatures at instant speed, kind of relevant. He's going to tick it up here. There's not too much he can do on 0, but once he gets to 2 or maybe 3, there's quite a lot of creatures that can do very clever things.
Yeah, well, the good thing for Thomas is that even if he had drawn a land there, he would be fine because he could have equipped the Batterskull.
So many different things to flicker here. elects to flicker out Tarmogoyf so that he can get a free attack in, actually kill off that Jace so that if Phyrexian Revoker is dealt with, then he doesn't need to worry about it.
So smooth. I really like the way Thomas is playing the deck. Like, if you see him play live and watch him play, it just feels like one of the smoothest things ever. It just feels like everything's completely under control, even if he's losing. It's just incredible to watch.
Yeah, it's the sort of thing that if it were a different player, it would feel very intimidating. But Enevoldsen always tends to have a little smile on his face. He's having a good time, which means that everyone has a good time when they're playing with Thomas.
Yeah, he's not even scared to attack with the Revoker. It's still bigger than Tarmogoyf, which actually I think Tarmogoyf is pretty big on its own.
We have artifacts, we have creatures, we have planeswalkers, we have lands, we have instants, and I'm pretty sure we have sorceries. It doesn't get much bigger than that. No tribal spells, but
no.
You know.
Look at, oh, you have 7 lands. I'll just tap your 1.
You never know. That Richard Amport not doing a whole lot any other way.
No. Sveinung drew another Jace there, so another like useless card on the board as the Ether Vials are ticking up slowly.
3 is about as high as it goes on Ether Vial. 2 and 3 would be pretty perfect, I think.
So what did Thomas draw here? As I said before, he's basically drawing life almost no matter what he draws.
And he's now at a point where he can equip across, and with the flyer with a Jite, he could just swing in for lethal here. I mean, there are cards in Bjornerud's hand, so he needs to at least pay mind to the idea that he might lose this creature in response to some pumps. But
so 5 power, 7 power, 9 power. Do you have anything? No. And Thomas went for the kill there, knowing that if Sveinung had resolved that Ancestral Visions, it would make it more likely for him to have an answer. So wisely, he went for it this turn.
Gets in the damage while he can, and as it turns out, that damage good enough to end game 1. Thomas Nevelson now 1-0, and we're going to get a chance to move across to one of our other matches, get a little bit of a live look in as these players are going to their sideboard. On the left of our screen, we can see a very busy board with all sorts of things going on for Martin Yuzer. He is on the 4-color Life from the Loam deck involving Knights of the Reliquary, Punishing Fire, and all sorts of other goodness. Meanwhile, Nicolas Tholance on Miracles doesn't have too many lands in play, and I can't help but think that that might partly be down to the sorts of things that Martin Yuzer's 4-color Loam deck can do. Sometimes it can get wastelands going with Life from the Loam and basically mean that anything that's not a basic land is not going to hang around for too long.
It's basically definitely what has happened. I see wastelands in Martin's hand, I see Life from the Loams in his hand, and he's just been able to establish a very solid board position. And he can kind of like go off with like the cycling lands and actually draw real cards off of his Life from the Loams. And you can see he's only returning the Baron Moor, I believe, is the black cycling land.
And of course, on top of all this, he has 2 copies of Grove of the Bonewellers in play. That one taps for red or green mana, but in so doing gives your opponent a life. Generally speaking, not what you want to be doing, but when you have Punishing Fire in your deck, and indeed in your graveyard, you can pay red mana when your opponent gains a life to put it back in your hand. So basically, Martin Yuzer has access to a crazy amount of burn if he wants. We can see that there's a Monastery Mentor in Nicolas Tholance's hand, which is a bit of a dangerous proposition in the face of multiple copies of Punishing Fire.
Yeah. You would think that this sort of deck that Martin Yuzer is playing, that it would be weak to the counterbalance top combination, but being the fact that he's playing 4 colors, like one of the cards that is being played a lot in these decks are Abrupt Decays. He's playing 4 of them, and I think he has 1 in his hand already. So he's definitely not scared of this sort of combination from Nicolas Tholance.
Yeah, the most important thing about Abrupt Decay, it can't be countered, whether by regular counter spells coming from someone's hand or by the ability of Counterbalance. So Counterbalance briefly makes it into play, gets stopped by that Abrupt Decay, and Martin Yuzer gets keep on trucking with his plan of gradually grinding out the victory here. He's got a Dryad Arbor in play that, if he wants to, he can start attacking with. Meanwhile, there's Life from the Loam just gradually putting him ahead every single turn, getting back lands as he needs, getting back cyclers so he can draw into things, and he's sitting on these wastelands just waiting for Nicolas Tholance to even consider playing a non-basic land.
Yeah. One of the problems for Martin Juza's situation right now is the fact that I see 2 Knight of Reliquaries already exiled, so I believe those have eaten Swords to Plowshares, and there's 2 more in his graveyard, so he's already ran out of the biggest threat that he has in his deck, which are the Knight of Reliquaries. So I wonder how he's going to kill now. He still has some Dark Confidence, and I see a Scavenging Ooze in his list as well. But it looks like he might go the old-fashioned way of just multiple punishing fires, slowly grinding away at his opponent.
If you've only got 1 punishing fire, then you're effectively doing 1 point of damage per time you cast it, given that you're having to give your opponent life to get it back. Once you have multiple copies of punishing fire, it gets a little bit more efficient. You're able to tap one of your Grove of the Burn Willows to potentially get back 2 copies of punishing fire. Then you can start getting ahead in the damage race. But one way or another, it's kind of slow, and with counterbalance in play, it's not necessarily 100% reliable. He kind of does want to get rid of the counterbalance first. We see him trying a Sylvan Library there. Ultimately, not resolving it as a predict comes along, and Martin Juza gives that predict a good old read, because it's not a card that he's very familiar with.
Yeah, it's a recently introduced card into Miracles, so it's definitely an interesting innovation, but does a good job countering.
It sounds like our main match has got back and go for game 2, though, so we're going to get a chance to see whether or not Tholance and Nevelson can make the second verse same as the first, casting a Stoneforge Mystic on 2 and able to make good things happen as he did in game 1. Again, fetching the Batterskull Skull first off. I think that's probably going to be the de facto first equipment you fetch in most matchups. He's losing it there immediately to Liliana, the Stoneforge Mystic, but he's not down on cards because at least he's been able to fetch that.
Where's the Stoneforge Mystic? Yeah, he put it in his hand. I'm like, what is he doing?
Tisk, Thomas. I think that they all figured that out there. Just trying to play kind of quickly. There is a little bit of pressure on all of these decks to be able to win in time. And of course, any round that you finish with a bit of extra time is always nice in terms of getting a bit of chance to decompress, just sort of relax between rounds. Just basic lands here for Tholance and Nevelson, but on 1 colour, he can afford to be running lots of them in his deck. And let's see what he's got for turn 3.
No, Brimas, King of Resco, that's pretty good. After that, Liliana killed off that Stoneforge Mystic, which I thought was a really good start for Sveinung, but if Sveinung doesn't have an Abrupt Decay, which he does.
He always does.
Yeah,
I'm coming to learn this about my boy Bjornerud.
He does have a lot of Ancestral Visions in his hand, though. Look at that. He's gonna put 2 on top here right away. It actually felt to me that he was like risking quite a lot because I don't think he had that Underground Sea in his hand. So I believe he played the Brainstorm and he drew the Underground Sea. He will be able to play Abrupt Decay killing the Brimas, but he might actually also go for like a Suspend on an Ancestral Vision and maybe play something else.
Yeah, there's plenty of options available. A discard from each player. One of those Ancestral Vision going into the Grumper, while Wishdam Port making it on the other side there.
I also see a Pithing Needle there. Yeah, actually, for those of you watching this match who might be thinking like, I don't understand what Sveinung is doing, you have to understand that this matchup is really hard to play from the Shardless Sultai side, because as you can see, like, there's so many different cards that Thomas and Enevoldsen could be playing at every step that it's really hard to play around what your opponent has. We do see the card, so it's easy for us, but not easy. And you see another standard legal card.
Yeah, Knight ally tokens being churned out there by Gideon, ally of Zendikar, and that's a consistent source of threats that is not something that people are necessarily going to be ready for in this Legacy format. Obviously, costing 4, it's a little bit more expensive than most of the cards that are getting cast in many Legacy decks. Means it's great against the likes of Counterbalance, but in a matchup like this one, it's just a matter of there's not that many 2-for-1 removal spells in the Shardless Bug deck, and Gideon kind of demands multiple cards to deal with it.
Yeah, Gideon getting a proper reaction from our chat. We're happy you're as excited as we are. Fortunately for Sveinung, he does have that Pithing Needle to deal with it. But we'll see if it's going to last long on this board. But Sveinung is still fine. He can also minus the Liliana to kill off that token, but he would lose it. So this is really hard to play on Sveinung's side. Especially we saw in game 1, he had 6 cards in his hand, but it always felt like he was behind, even though he had plenty of lands.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that what Death and Taxes is often trying to do is to make it so that even if your opponent is getting card advantage, they can't deploy all of those cards in an effective way. It's playing the tempo plan, not necessarily by being quick, but by making it so that your opponent can't play at the pace that they normally might.
Yeah, and Svein actually figured it out really well. He brainstormed, put some good cards on the top, and then managed to play Disfigure, Ancestral Visions, Pithing Needle in the same turn, while also plussing Liliana, without losing Liliana. So he plussed that, got rid of Wasteland from Thomas. And but now Thomas just keeps on churning. Stoneforge Mystic, number 2.
Now, you may notice that there's a die on top of Sveinung Bjornerud's deck there. That just a little reminder to him that he has got effect in upkeep before he draws. He doesn't want to miss that he's got Suspend gradually ticking down on that Ancestral Vision. It is something that you're able to do, and indeed, I'd probably recommend it if you know that you've got things in upkeep, just so that you don't mess up your sequencing and potentially miss out on an important effect.
But if I look correctly, there should be an Abrupt Decay on top. There is. So Sveinung draws the Abrupt Decay. Now he'll be able to minus Liliana, and Abrupt Decay the other creature that survives if it's either Serra Avenger or Stormforge Mystic. Again, keep his board intact. And Thomas needs a creature this turn, again. Because we know he has Battle Skull. Oh, he has Caracas as well. And he's just going to jam the equipment, which is great for this spot. Sveinung getting close with that Visions, but still some ways off. All right, Brainstorm.
Yeah, Brainstorm when you don't have cards in hand, not quite as exciting, but, it's still more exciting than most draws in most formats, so I don't think you'll feel too sad. There's Tarmogoyf there, looks to be the card that he's choosing to keep, and leaving the Ancestral Vision as far down as he can in that pile that he puts back on his deck there.
I'm just not sure if it's going to be big enough. I mean, Sveinung surely has to wasteland the Caracas here, because otherwise Thomas can just play Sword of Fire and Ice, equip his Germ token, make it a 6/6, and I don't think the Goyf would be a 6/7. I think it's a 4/5 or a 5/6 right now.
I mean, if you activate Liliana to force the sacrifice of a creature, that's Planeswalkers in the graveyard, in addition to getting rid of the Germ that's in play.
But he had to plus Liliana this turn, so
of course he did. Yes, sorry.
So he can't minus it right away.
So a little bit of thought here for Thomas.
Yeah, he has the Sword of Fire and Ice. We don't know what the other card is. I haven't seen it. Oh wow, he's going to discard that. Sveinung did not hesitate. That must be a really good card in Thomas's hand. Oh, Rest in Peace. That's a good one.
Sorry, Tarmogoyf, you are no longer especially effective.
Yeah, and he attacks the Liliana immediately. I think he did keep. I think he had the Mother Runes in hand for a little while, but now playing Rest in Peace and Mother of Runes means that Sveinung can't just minus the Liliana to kill off that Germ token. And Thomas again, it seems to be in a decent board position, but for how long is the question.
Well, he's going to be drawing 4 cards next turn, at least. He's got Ancestral Vision ready to come off Suspend soon enough. And normally in a top deck battle, that would be plenty enough to feel like you're well ahead.
Yeah.
But this board at present that Thomas Enevelson's built up is a powerful one. He will be able to start chipping away at that life total soon enough.
Yeah, now is the big question. Minus the Liliana. So do you want to get rid of Mother of Runes or your Germ token? But as I kept saying before, Thomas's deck is completely live. Land is good because he can equip the Battle Skull. Creature is good. Oh, look at that. Stoneforge Mystic, he can go for the Jite and be in great shape again.
And an active Mother of Runes is super duper powerful. Protection is, for my money, one of the most powerful creature abilities around. You can't be targeted by, you can't be damaged by, you can't be blocked by cards of the appropriate color. And as long as Mother of Runes is untapped, she can basically protect either herself or any of the other creatures that Thomas Nevelson happens to have in play. And with equipment on those creatures, they don't need to be doing too much before they become very challenging indeed for Bjornerud to deal with.
And there's Caracas as well, so perfect draw here. He can. I really like Batterskull together with Mother Runes is pretty nice. It can attack and protect itself. But of course, you can also put it on the Stoneforge Mystic as well. It feels like Sveinung is drawing cards, but they don't matter, just because like Thomas's cards just seem to match up that much better on this sort of board.
So it looks like Thomas Nevelson has passed here. I'm intrigued by that.
Yes.
It seemed like the natural play to use 5 mana to equip, but he's realized that a better play is to use 3 mana to bounce the Batterskull and 2 mana to activate Stoneforge Mystic, getting a Germ token, netting an extra creature in play, and not exposing either of his powerful creatures to being the obvious target for the removal.
Yeah, or just the block by Baleful Strix. In this regard, Thomas he's really saving up his Mother of Runes. He wants to make sure that he's not getting blown out by an Abrupt Decay or anything. There you see Sveinung immediately taking care of that Caracas. I think it's again a land, but it's fine.
Yeah, Wasteland's one of the better lands to draw. I mean, it's not as if any particular color is going to be a tough one for Bjornerud to handle, but Batterskull Germ also has an Umezawa's Jitte. So it's a 0/0 creature that's substantially larger thanks to Batterskull, and then larger again, well, more powerful again thanks to Umezawa's Jitte that now has 2 counters.
Yeah, and he's Thomas not only gaining a lot of life, Sveinung again draws a Shardless Agent, but I mean, the best he can do is find Abrupt Decay, probably. Yeah, 0 on Goyf maybe. Thank you, rest in peace.
Yeah, I mean, all of a sudden, the best threats of Bjornerud's deck don't look particularly threatening. Wasteland on Wasteland does mean that there's not the 5 mana available for the Bounce My Batterskull, put it back into play, but...
Yeah, because he can always bounce back the Batterskull here and put it into play with the Stoneforge Mystic again. There's no danger of Vendilion Click or anything like this with Sveinung tapped down to 2 mana. Also with 1 card in his hand.
And a 5th land there, basic planes. These all unhinged planes. That's why they're the most full art that you're ever likely to see. And a double... putting into play the Batterskull, then equipping with Umezawa's Jitte.
Yeah, so Sveinung just has good cards in his deck, but just they don't seem to matter in this sort of magic game that Thomas Enevoldsen is trying to craft. And this is the beauty of Death and Taxes. And I would quickly looked over the chat, and it's already people looking like, oh, is it hard to get all the cards for Death and Taxes? This deck's cool.
It's not as hard as it is for many of the decks in Legacy. One of the great things to say about this deck is look at all of those basic lands. One of the things that can sometimes be fiddly for newer players is getting hold of some of the dual lands. This deck doesn't run any dual lands. Mono white, very straightforward, and
look at that. Sveinung just chump blocking with his Death Right Jump. Very completely useless because there's no graveyards to eat up. So the interaction coming up again. All right, Shardless Agent again. The best thing that Sveinung can find is Abrupt Decay, but he only runs 4 and he already played 2. So it's definitely not at its best here.
And Nevelson just having a little think about what he wants to do. Kills off Shardless Agent. That clears a path for a big attack here.
And he's attacking for 6 because he's using +2/+2 on the GT, and just casually leaving both his creatures back just in case he needs to return the Batterskull to his hand and put it into play again with the Stoneforge Mystic.
Drawing 3 extra cards looks pretty good, especially when one of those cards is Null Rod.
Yeah, what does that card do?
Well, the flavor text says it does nothing.
No, it's a little more complex than that. It says it doesn't do anything. It does nothing, or the other way around.
Absolutely, but basically what it means is that artifacts activated abilities can no longer be played.
Yeah.
Now that becomes relevant when you look at all of that equipment sat on the Germ token. Yeah. You can't use any of those charge counters to do anything. Likewise, you cannot equip any of that equipment anymore while that Null Rod's in play. And now we've got a Shardless Agent finding Abrupt Decay. That means that the token is potentially a target, though Mother of Runes is happy to say no to that.
Yeah, so he's probably just gonna. He could go for the rest in peace, just so that he can free up some potential death right shamans and Tarmogoyf. So yeah, he goes for that. But the Norod actually turns off the equip part and the return part on the Battle Skull, but it's already equipped.
+4 is still, and the Vigilance are all still very much live.
Yeah. And the germ token is unlikely to die anytime soon with the Mother of Runes protecting it.
Mother of Runes, quietly one of the most powerful 1-drops ever printed.
Look at that. It's like, oh, finally, I got rid of that recipe. Here are my Deathrite Shaman. But Thomas done 38, so they would have to do a lot of work there.
And Mishra's Factory, an original Antiquities Mishra's Factory, getting to swing in here. Just because these cards are old does not mean that you can't play them. Legacy, the format where more or less every card ever printed is fair game.
Yeah. Also, it doesn't. The Wizard is still getting counters. So if Thomas Enevoldsen ever draws a Flicker Wisp, he can flicker away the Null Rod for a while, and then just gun down the creatures of Sveinung, who's down to 7 already.
Chop down, I think, is probably the
term.
Chop
down. Okay.
It's a sword.
Yeah, kind. It's a Jitte.
It is.
Oh, interesting. Council's Judgment.
Council's Judgment, an interesting card from Conspiracy. In multiplayer, it has one function, which is that everyone votes on what permanent they want to be destroyed. When there's only 2 players, though, the deciding vote goes to the player that cast it. So in a 2-player game, it basically lets you choose a permanent in play and destroy that permanent.
Yeah. So he went for... He actually chose Null Rod and Pithing Needle, I think. And Sveinung chose to keep the Null Rod. But this has freed up the Gideon ally of Zendikar, which has been... on the battlefield for quite a while, disabled by that Pithing Needle.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, he's looking at the Null Rod and saying, my Battle Skull's not a bad card right now.
Yeah. And here are the Knight allies from Gideon there.
Gideon's bringing his boys back in town.
Yeah, I mean, Sveinung can do his hardest just to try to get some life back and maybe drain Thomas, but...
44 points is a lot of drain.
Yeah, there is a Golgari Charm from Sveinung, so at least he'll be able to get rid of Mother of Runes, but that's about it.
So, by my count, Sveinung Bjornerud has drawn about 10 additional cards this game between Assorted Ancestral Visions.
Probably even more with
Brainstorms
Brainstorms. Yeah. Charlotte's Agents as well.
Meanwhile, he just feels like he's a million miles behind.
Yeah, that's amazing to me. It's like... People keep telling me like Shardless Sultai is basically the Jund of this format, but it just got outgrinded by Death and Taxes. Completely outgrinded as well. And just Thomas going on the offensive. He even forgot to activate the Mishra's Factory.
Oh well, he says, I guess I'm just going to hit you for whatever I hit you for.
Yeah.
Tell me how that works for you.
And he's just going to use the -1/-1 mode on the Golgari Charm, it seems. Yeah, so give all creatures -1/-1.
Well, that's going to be enough to put paid for Mother of Runes, so she decides to give protection to the Germ token just because it's probably the most valuable creature on the board right now. As once Null Rod is in play, if that Germ token dies, the equipment is doing absolutely nothing.
I love this deck, and I love Thomas playing it.
This is absolutely the person to watch if you want to learn about Death and Taxes.
Yeah, this was a masterclass in how to play Death and Taxes. So efficient with the mana, so considerate with what he plays, what he discards, what he sacrifices, plays perfectly to his opponent's plan.
And if you want to watch what I think might be one of the greatest matches ever on video, from the GP that Thomas Nevelson won, he managed to win a game where his opponent reduced him to 0 permanents with Emrakul attacks. Followed it up, got back in the game, ultimately won the game. Fantastic game of Magic, worth digging out. But we're going to get a chance to see a little bit more Magic now. We have our matchup with Martin Yuzer still going on. I mean, that one took a little bit of time to get through game 1. We are now on game 2, I believe. So let's get down to that one and see exactly where we're at there.
This board looks awfully familiar.
It does. We have a Chalice the Void on 1, a Chalice the Void on 3, a huge amount of mana in play for Martin Yuzer here. We're just going to get our score key updated for you. It's going to take a little while to figure out exactly where we're at on this, but I mean, with the Green Sun Zenith for any number that Martin chooses, it looks like he's just casting Green Sun Zenith each turn in order to not deck himself.
Yeah, and I think this was still game 1.
Oh, wow.
I believe that there was still the game we saw a little bit, because the order of the cards in graveyard seems very familiar, and it just seemed like it would take a long while for Martin to actually win with the punishing fires and such, but he did eventually manage to do it.
Yeah, I feel like it may effectively been a case of I've demonstrated my loop. I've got these Green Sun Zeniths that I'm going to be able to cast each turn to get my my deck never to run out.
Yeah.
I have Chalice of the Void on all of the numbers. That means that you're not going to be able to do it too much. I'm guessing that by that point, every copy of Abrupt Decay had been dealt with. Oh, sorry, it's Miracles.
It is
every
Miracles.
copy of Abrupt Decay had been dealt with at the deck building standpoint of this game.
Yeah.
So Martin Yuzer, it took him a very long time. I'm not quite sure how long we got left on this round, but he is now a game up. And for Miracles, how much changes after sideboarding here?
Honestly, not much. I mean, he will definitely bring in surgical extractions. Maybe wear tear, probably not. But surgical extraction is definitely going to be one of them. Probably engineered explosives as well. But he doesn't have that much going on from Nicolas Tholance. Does Martin Yuzer have anything that's relevant?
Well, the spiciest card is one that I asked him a little bit about at the start of the day. There is a copy of Chandra Flamecaller in the sideboard, which apparently is partly there because it has a gigantic impact on the board. It can potentially kill off Monastery Mentor tokens without itself dying. It can get cast and resolved and have a big impact without counterbalance being too much of a concern. Only Terminus really that's going to deal with it. And I think you need to be quite bold to have Terminus still in. There's not that many creatures in this deck after sideboarding if you don't want there to be.
But just to confirm, that's the standard legal 6-mana one, yes?
That is absolutely correct. If you're trying to figure out which Chandra we're talking about, it costs 4 colorless red. You can use it to discard your hand and then draw more cards. That's very relevant in this deck where you might want to use it to get your Life from the Loam thing going on. You can put 2/3/1 elementals in play with haste and start beating down. And then occasionally, you know what, you can go for an ultimate as well.
Yeah. That's fair enough. Didn't expect to see this card in Legacy, but it's a damn good card. We saw it win a GP in the hands of Raphael Levy, who didn't have any red mana to cast it anyway. But Oath of Nissa, ladies and gentlemen.
Sometimes it all just kind of works out. Lots of interesting cards involved in both the main deck and the sideboard of Yuzer's 4-color Loam deck. He's got one of Garokteeg, which there are matchups where it's absolutely just insane. This not necessarily one of them. There's not too many big expensive spells, but it does mean that once it's in play, he doesn't need to worry about the likes of Force of Will. He can sort of play around that a little bit more carefully. Likewise, Jace and so on. So some of the big hitters from the Miracles deck suddenly not quite as effective there.
Yeah.
I mean, Martin Yuzer's deck set up for the long game, and I can't help but think that Nicolas Tholance, there's enough time elapsed on this clock that he's going to have to think, is there a way that I can be aggressive? And looking at the exact build of Miracles being played by him, there's 2 copies of Monastery Mentor and 1 copy of Snapcaster Mage. His is not a deck, 4 copies in total after sideboarding, but his is not a deck that is well set up to win games super duper quickly. And a game down this late in the round, he may find that he's in rough shape.
Yeah, definitely. Miracles is a slow deck on its own, and especially if it's forced to go on the aggro plan, Martin Yuzer draws Punishing Fire and a Grove of the Burn Willows. It's going to be very hard for Nicolas to win that one.
Well, looks like we're about ready to kick things off here. Nope. Mulligans from Nicolas Tholance. He's got calamity after calamity here, because I'm sure that he would have wanted to get things kicked off sooner rather than later. There is a Chalice of the Void. It looks like there's 2 copies of Chalice of the Void in hand for Martin Yuzer here, so he can potentially set up Chalice for 1 relatively quickly, Chalice for 2 soon thereafter, and without 1-drops and 2-drops, what does Nicolas Tholance really have going on?
Nothing, basically. I mean, he had to keep in the Termini, and the Swords to Plowshares, but yeah, not much else that's going on here.
I mean, even just the Chalice for 1 shuts down a large proportion of what's going on with Miracles. And then I guess the reason he had on 1 and 3 in game 1 is that 3 stops Monastery Mentor. That's one of the best win conditions available to Nicolas Tholance. It also means that 2 is still open for Life from the Loam. So turn 1 Ponder here, seeing a couple of land and a Sword to Plowshares. draws a flooded strand, leaves another land on top. And a Mox Diamond on turn 1 from Martin Yuzer. He's going to have to discard a land to cast this. I'm not sure he's going to mind that too much, because it will mean that he can cast a turn 1 Chalice of the Void if he so chooses.
Yeah, and it will be a pretty good start, turning off the swords, the tops, the brainstorms, at least until Nicolas finds a wear and tear that he surely will board it in. But he has to hurry if he wants to win this game even to get a draw. But I think he would struggle to win 2.
So a turn 2 Liliana if he wants it here for Martin Yuzer.
I think he's going to go for it.
I like this deck a lot. It's a deck that Martin said he was a little bit leery about doing a deck tech on at the start of the day, because it's not a deck that he personally has played all that much. But he received a lot of advice from a good friend of his in the Czech Republic, who is something of a legacy master, plays a huge amount of legacy, and this was the recommendation. Do not change a single card in the list, he was told. He did not change a single card.
Yeah.
And thus far undefeated on day 1 here in one of his sort of home GPs. Martin Yuzer, well accustomed to travelling all over the world for GPs, not having to do so quite so much in this matchup, this particular GP.
Yeah. Nicolas actually has a pretty decent hand in this one. He can counterspell the Liliana thanks to that fetch land. Now he'll be able to play a Monastery Mentor while still having that wear and tear in his hand. And he also has a predict too. So if he wants to be aggressive, this is the perfect time for it, because I don't think he'll be able to win in time. Time was called for the regular tournament, but I think there's still time for them. I think they do have extra time.
Yeah, I mean, Monastery Mentor, he had to play it out here on 3 and hope that it sticks, because it is the only way that he has a win quickly. Another Chalice of the Void there, the draw off Tranquil Thicket for Martin Yuzer. He's got lots of chalices, not too much to do with them. Goes for a wasteland on Tholance's land, recognizes that basically the more mana available alongside Monastery Mentor, the scarier that Mentor gets.
Absolutely.
And a swing for 2.
I'm surprised Nicolas didn't use his wear and tear there in combat. He does run 2 Volcanic Islands, so alright. Dark Confidant is a card I can definitely get behind, but it might actually come to hurt Martin in the end. It's a way to lose faster.
In principle, yes. Martin's in a position here. He's a game up. I mean, he needs to be very clear not to be slow playing or anything, but equally, he doesn't need to do too much to win this match here. He just needs to stay alive for the remaining time. And at the moment, with a Chalice of the Void in play, he's got one major speed bump to everything that Nicolas Tholance may want to be doing. He just needs to make sure that he's got things going on in terms of holding back that Monastery Mentor. It wouldn't surprise me at all if we saw Dark Confidant moving into the blocking role fairly quickly here.
Yeah, potentially. Nicolas checking his sideboard just to be sure. Maybe he's looking for a card. He sideboarded out.
I've done that before. The moment that you realize just moments too late that you sideboarded in a way that leaves you without a card that you really would like to have.
Interestingly enough, he doesn't go for the Volcanic Island here, so he can't cast Wear and Tear, but he's going to cast Predict.
And this is a blind Predict.
Yes, absolutely by himself. Top.
Well, he wouldn't have got much use out of that top beyond it making a monk for him anyway.
Yep. There is the Scalding Tarn though. You can really put on some pressure here. No, I think they do have extra turns already. Or, no, Predict. Martin's just trying to make sure that they know what was happening there.
Yeah, Predict from Odyssey, a card that Martin Yuzer did have to read the first time he saw it.
Yeah, we got a reader, the classic.
So monks coming in. Monastery Mentor a 3/3 thanks to prowess. The other one just a 2/2.
He doesn't want to pump up his monks, it seems, in combat. There's the Liliana. A turn too late, I would say, and also cost him 3 life. Abrupt Decay, though, that's the card he wanted.
Yeah, that'll deal with the Monastery Mentor 10 times out of 10. 10 out of 10 would kill again.
or the perfect 5 out of 7. Let's see. Okay, pass the turn. I wonder at what point Martin will have to decide he wants to trade off with a monk.
So Snapcaster Mage in response here. And this is basically Nicolas Tholance getting a Constellation Monk before his Monastery Mentor is dealt with.
So predict. I wonder what he's going to predict this time. I love hitting like blind predicts.
Oh yeah, like it's. I mean, I think that any card that enables you to make a called shot is very exciting just for that reason. I mean, the called Cabal Therapy it just feels fantastic. Every time you hit when you have no extra information, you feel like king of the world.
Martin doing the reading again there. One game wasn't enough. Right, so that Snapcaster Mage was played in the upkeep, so that one can't attack. And that's a 2-2 monk there. Yeah, at this point Martin trades. He'll probably go for the Liliana minus. You can see we're an extra turn, so Martin is going to try his hardest to survive this game.
Yeah, the big giant die of Please Don't Die, currently on 1. At the end of turn 5, that is the end of the game, regardless of the life totals or anything else. And if neither player has been finished off by the end of that turn 5, it will work out that the game is currently 1-0 to Martin Yuzer. It would be 1 and a draw. 1 and a draw is ultimately enough for the win for Martin Yuzer.
Yeah. I don't think Nicolas can win the game here at this point. He led the Liliana Resolve, which ate his Snapcaster Mage. And I just don't understand why Nicolas was so averse of finding a red source to kill the Chalice. Because now he even drew a Sensei's Divining Top, and it's just pointless. Yeah, Martin realizes, like, okay, that gets countered.
Yeah, all it served to be was
2 damage.
fire breathing.
Yeah.
Turn 3. User draws for his turn.
Yeah, he's fine. He also has Knight of Reliquary, which will be countered by the Force of Will. There's the Wear and Tear. I've been holding it the whole game. I mean, he didn't draw too many 1 casting cost spells anyway. It's fine. But it just seems like he wasn't giving himself any favors there. There's Knight of Reliquary. Counter spell, old school.
Yeah, just the hand gesture. That's not happening for you.
Nope.
There's the handshake. Nicolas Tholance recognizes that there's no way that he's going to be able to win that game. Extends the hand on turn 4. Martin Yuzer picking up the victory after an epic game 1. But the last of our live rounds here in round 7 here at GP Prague. That does not mean to say that there's not plenty more magic for you, though. Do not go anywhere, because very shortly we'll have round 8. But before that, we're going to get a chance to move across to Riley and Simon for even more magic.